Chapter 5. Morning came without ceremony. No birdsong, no distant traffic, no normal sounds to mark the passing of time. Just a gradual thinning of darkness as pale, dirty light crept through the cracks in the warehouse walls. Matthew knew it was dawn because the air changed. Light had weight to it. He felt it before it touched his eyes. A pressure behind the sockets, a rising ache that bloomed even before the pain truly arrived. He pulled the sunglasses down over his face and turned his head away from the brightest seams in the concrete. Still, it hurt. He sat up slowly, staff already in hand. His body ached from sleeping half upright on cold concrete, muscles locked in readiness that never fully relaxed. Around him, the warehouse breathed with the soft sounds of his family waking one by one. Whitley was already moving. She always was. Matthew tracked her by sound, the careful shift of her boots, the muted click of the kimber being checked and rechecked. Competent, controlled, afraid, but refusing to let it rule her. "How long was I out?" he asked quietly. "Maybe 2 hours," she said. "Kids slept more." Matthew nodded. 2 hours was a gift now. Thor whimpered. The sound cut through everything else. Matthew turned toward it immediately, heart tightening. He crossed the short distance to the dog and knelt, ignoring the spike of pain in his knees. Thor's breathing was worse. Faster, shallow. His fur was damp, not from the river, but from fever sweat. Matthew rested a hand against the dog's chest and felt the heat radiating off him. "Hey boy," Matthew murmured, "you stayed with us, that matters." Thor's tail thumped once, weak but there. Whitley crouched beside them. "The wound's angry," she said. "Red, swollen." "Infected," Matthew said. "Yeah." They shared a look that didn't need words. Antibiotics weren't optional. Not for Thor, not for any of them, if things went wrong. Matthew straightened slowly and listened to the building again. Daylight changed acoustics. Sound didn't travel as far, didn't carry the same sharp edges. Outside, Savannah groaned. Distant fires crackled. Something exploded far away, a dull thump that echoed through the river corridor. The city was tearing itself apart in pieces. "Everyone up," Whitley said softly. Saoirse rubbed her eyes and sat up, immediately checking on her siblings. Morrigan was already awake, rocking Raymond gently. Matthew Jr. clung to Whitley's leg, thumb in his mouth. Lilith fussed, sensing the tension even if she didn't understand it. Carl stretched near the door, joints popping. "We can't stay here," he said. "No," Matthew agreed. "But we don't rush." Carl frowned. "They'll find us." "Eventually," Matthew said, "but panic gets you killed faster than waiting." He rose to his feet and tapped the staff lightly against the concrete. Mapping the interior again, the sound came back clean. Empty space, no movement. "Here's the problem," Matthew continued. "We need supplies. Medical, food, water. And ammo," Carl added. "And ammo," Matthew agreed. "But we don't do a supply run blind." Whitley crossed her arms. "Phone's dead now. No signal." Matthew wasn't surprised. Power lasted until it didn't. "What about radio?" he asked. Carl gestured toward a dusty shelf near the wall. "Saw one last night. Old AM/FM. Might still work." Matthew moved toward it, counting steps, hand trailing along the wall. He knelt and brushed dust aside until his fingers found plastic and dials. He turned it on. Static burst into the warehouse like a living thing. Everyone flinched. Matthew lowered the volume immediately, adjusting the tuner with careful precision. Static faded in and out, punctuated by fragments of voices, panicked, distorted, overlapping. National Guard. Shelter in place. Bite wounds. Matthew froze. He turned the dial just a hair. A clearer voice emerged. "This is an emergency broadcast from Static. Savannah region. Crackle. Do not attempt evacuation unless directed." Whitley laughed bitterly under her breath. Too late for that. Matthew listened harder, filtering through the distortion. "Infection spreads through bodily fluids. Dead do not respond to pain. Head trauma appears effective." Matthew's grip tightened on the radio. "Confirmed. Repeat. Remain indoors." The broadcast dissolved back into static. Silence followed. No one spoke for several seconds. Matthew shut the radio off. "That's all we're getting," Carl said. "It's enough," Matthew replied. "We know what works. We know what doesn't." He turned toward his family. "We don't engage unless we have to. We don't waste bullets. We move during low-noise windows." He paused. "And we prioritize Thor." Whitley nodded immediately. "There's a veterinary clinic 3 blocks east of our house." Carl grimaced. "That's deep." Matthew tilted his head, listening to the world beyond the walls. Daytime infected were louder, less cautious, easier to track, but harder to avoid. "We don't go yet," Matthew said. "We watch. We learn their patterns." Morrigan suddenly spoke. "They're slower in the sun." Everyone turned toward her. Matthew crouched to her level. "What makes you say that?" She frowned, thinking carefully. "Last night they were mad. Now they're tired." Matthew smiled faintly. "That's good noticing." Carl exhaled. "Kid might be right." Matthew straightened. "Then we use the daylight," he said, "but not the way they expect." Outside, something banged against metal, once, then again, closer than before. Matthew's grip tightened on the staff. Positions, he said quietly, and daylight was no longer their enemy alone. The banging came again. 3 heavy impacts spaced unevenly, like someone testing strength rather than trying to break in. Matthew didn't flinch. He tilted his head instead, listening past the noise, past the echo inside the warehouse. Not infected. Too deliberate. "Human," he said quietly. 1, maybe 2. Carl shifted his grip on the shotgun. "Friendly?" Matthew shook his head once. "Unknown is worse." The banging stopped. Silence followed. Thick, intentional silence. Matthew hated that more. A voice finally came through the metal door, muffled but clear enough. "Anyone inside?" a woman called. "We don't want trouble." Matthew felt Whitley move beside him. Her breathing changed, controlled but sharp. "Neither do we," Matthew called back. "Step away from the door." A pause, then footsteps retreated a few steps. "My name's Dana," the woman said. "We saw smoke earlier, thought maybe someone was still alive." Matthew listened carefully now. 2 sets of breathing, one heavier than the other. No shuffling, no dragging, no wet sounds. "Any bites?" Matthew asked. Another pause, shorter this time. "No," Dana replied, "but we're running out of places to hide." Matthew closed his eyes. Every group was. Carl leaned close. "We don't have room." "We don't have luxury," Matthew whispered back. He turned toward Whitley without looking. "Your call." She hesitated only a second. "One at a time," she said. "Weapons down." Matthew nodded and raised his voice. "One of you approached the door, slowly, hands visible." Metal scraped as the door was unbarred just enough to crack open. Light spilled in, stabbing Matthew's vision even through the sunglasses. He looked away, trusting sound instead. Footsteps approached. A woman stopped just outside the threshold. "I'm here," Dana said. "Push the door open with your foot," Matthew instructed. "Hands up." She did. Matthew listened. Heartbeat fast. Breathing shallow. Fear but controlled. Not a liar. Carl covered her with the shotgun as Whitley frisked her quickly and pulled her inside. Dana was thin, exhausted, dirt-streaked, no visible wounds. "Where's the other?" Matthew asked. "My brother," Dana said. He's hurt." Matthew stiffened. "Bitten?" "No. Fell. Broke his ankle running." Matthew weighed it fast. Another mouth, another liability, another human. "Bring him," Matthew said, slow. It took several minutes. The brother Evan was pale, sweating, ankle grotesquely swollen and already turning purple. Carl helped drag him inside while Whitley shut and rebarred the door again. Thor growled softly but didn't move. Matthew crouched near Evan, listening. Pain. Real pain. No hunger. "He won't walk," Whitley said quietly. "I know," Matthew replied. Dana's eyes filled. "Please, we'll work. We'll do anything." Matthew stood. "Here's how this works," he said calmly. "We don't carry dead weight, we don't waste supplies, and we don't lie. You do your share or you leave." Dana nodded frantically. "Yes, yes." Matthew turned away. Decision made. Outside, something howled in the distance, long and ugly. "All right," Matthew said. "New priority." Everyone looked at him. "We need antibiotics," he said, "and a defensible position with sightlines I can work around." Carl frowned. "That vet clinic?" "Yes." Whitley inhaled sharply. "That's a supply run." "It's a rescue mission," Matthew corrected. "Thor doesn't make it without meds." Thor lifted his head weakly at his name. Matthew knelt again, resting his forehead briefly against the dog's. "I won't leave you," he whispered. Outside, the sun climbed higher. The infected grew louder, and the first real choice of daylight settled heavily over them. They would go out, not because it was safe, but because staying still was already killing them. They didn't leave right away. That was Matthew's first rule of daylight: never move on impulse. Instead, he listened. Time stretched in careful increments as the family and their 2 unexpected guests remained silent inside the warehouse. Matthew counted the world through sound. Distant sirens finally dying out, the crackle of a fire somewhere upriver, the erratic moans of infected drifting like smoke through the streets. Daylight made them restless, not faster, just louder, less focused. "They're spreading out," Matthew said quietly, wandering instead of hunting. Carl leaned against the crate. "How can you tell?" Matthew tilted his head slightly. "They're not converging. No echoes stacking, no rhythm." Morrigan watched him with intense focus, absorbing every word. Whitley packed deliberately. She rationed ammunition into pockets, wrapped spare cloth for bandages, and secured Lilith tightly against her chest. Saoirse helped without being asked, steady hands passing items one by one. Matthew took inventory by touch. Lawson .38, 3 magazines partially full. Remington 742, 6 rounds in the internal magazine, 2 spare clips. Staff solid oak, scarred but dependable. Axes and aluminum bats, heavy, loud but effective. "Noise discipline," Matthew said. "Melee first, firearms last." Carl nodded. Dana swallowed hard. Thor attempted to stand and failed. Matthew knelt immediately. "No," Whitley said softly. "You can't take him." Matthew's jaw tightened. "I won't leave him." "He'll slow you down," Carl added, not unkindly. Matthew placed both hands on Thor's head, thumbs brushing over scarred ears. "He's family." Silence followed. Then Morrigan spoke again. "We can carry him." Matthew looked up. Carl blinked. "What?" "We have the dolly," she said, pointing toward an old warehouse hand truck leaning against the wall. "And blankets. If he lies still, it won't hurt his leg." Matthew considered it. Sound-wise, wheels were better than limping paws. He nodded. "Good thinking." Thor was wrapped carefully, settled onto the dolly with straps improvised from torn belts. The dog huffed but didn't protest. Matthew exhaled slowly. Another problem solved. They waited 10 more minutes. Then Matthew moved. "Now." The back door opened just enough to slip through. Daylight stabbed at Matthew's eyes even through the sunglasses, white-hot pain flaring behind them. He gritted his teeth and leaned into sound instead. The world was louder in the sun. Infected groaned openly now, wandering streets with slack jaws and dragging limbs. Some clustered in shade, others stood motionless, heads tilted, as if listening for something they could no longer quite remember. "Stay behind me," Matthew whispered. They moved along the river path again, then cut inland through noted back streets Matthew had memorized years ago. He counted steps between landmarks he couldn't see, hydrants, dumpsters, fence posts, rebuilding Savannah in his head from memory and echo. A groan rose ahead. Matthew stopped. A single infected staggered into their path, skin blistered by sun, movements sluggish. It turned toward the sound of the dolly's wheels. Matthew stepped forward without hesitation. The staff struck with a dull crack. The body dropped. No gunfire, no scream. They moved on. As they approached the veterinary clinic, the smell hit first. Antiseptic, blood, decay. The front windows were shattered. The door hung open. Carl swore under his breath. Matthew listened. Inside movement. Multiple, not infected. Human voices, arguing, desperate. "Scavengers," Whitley whispered. Matthew nodded. "And they won't want competition." He raised the Remington slightly, settling it into his shoulder. The weight steadied him. He breathed through the pain in his eyes. "We don't push," he said, "we wait." A scream erupted inside the clinic, then gunfire. Matthew flinched, not at the sound, but at what followed. The infected answered. Moans surged from every direction, echoing down streets, bouncing off buildings. A chorus. Dana panicked. "Oh God!" "Quiet," Matthew hissed. The clinic door burst open as 2 men ran out, one clutching a box. Behind them, infected spilled into the doorway. Matthew fired once. The rifle cracked like thunder. The runner dropped instantly. The other screamed and fell, swarmed. Matthew worked the action, heart pounding. "Move," he shouted. They rushed the clinic as the infected converged, slipping inside just as the horde flooded the street. Whitley slammed the door. Carl dragged a cabinet in front of it. Inside, chaos. Blood on walls, bodies on the floor. Supplies scattered everywhere. Matthew ignored it all. He followed the smell. Antibiotics. He found them by touch, fingers brushing cool plastic bottles, cardboard boxes, syringes. "Here," he said, "load everything." The door shook violently. Thor whimpered. Matthew shoved bottles into Whitley's pack. "Now," he shouted. They fled through the back as the clinic door finally gave way. Outside, Savannah screamed. They ran, not fast but smart, cutting through alleys, doubling back, letting noise draw the dead away from them. Matthew never fired again. By the time they reached the warehouse, they were shaking, bleeding, exhausted, but alive. Matthew knelt beside Thor and handed Whitley the antibiotics. She didn't hesitate. As the medicine went in, Thor let out a low, grateful sound and rested his head against Matthew's chest. Matthew closed his eyes, pain and relief mixing together. They had faced daylight and survived it. But the city had noticed, and it would not forget them. End of chapter 5.